Hello and welcome to this edition of Success Gyan's podcast. I am Sawan Kapoor, India's leading career coach, and today we are going to talk about how to ask your boss for a salary hike. So let's get right into it. See, you don't get up one day suddenly and say, let me go and ask my boss for a salary hike or a raise or a promotion. This is a much more strategic process than that. And to get this right, you have to first go back to the time when you started the role. When you start in a new role or transition to a new company or have been promoted to a new designation, that is the right time to plant the seed for this. That is to ask your boss for a raise or a salary hike in some time, in due course. In fact, there are five very important conversations you need to have with your supervisor, with your boss at the time when you are starting in a new role. And these conversations are the right ones which will help you plant this seed for asking your supervisor for a raise or a promotion at the right time. So it is critical to understand what these five conversations are. See, the first conversation you need to have with your supervisor as you're starting in a new role or have been promoted is the situational diagnosis conversation. In this conversation, you are talking about the specifics of the issues at hand, the nature and the causes of the problem and its symptoms, so that you and your supervisor are on the same page when it comes to an understanding of where the problem lies, what the problem is, and what the opportunities are as well. The idea here is to be able to bridge the gap, between the perspectives of how your boss sees the issue and how you see the issue. Now, to bridge this gap, either he or she, that is your boss, will move their perspective towards yours, or you will move your perspective towards his or hers. And it is very important that both of you, that is your boss and you, define the problem and the complexity of the problem the same way. If you both see it as the same problem, then the likelihood that you will agree on a solution and the solutions that you propose will be accepted also increases. Of course, you will have to stay flexible given the reality of the situation, that it may be very dynamic and there are changing goalposts all the time. And you should be able to tweak the solution as necessary. But the closer you and your boss are in viewing the problems, the less the solution will have to be tweaked. The second discussion or conversation you need to have with your supervisor is the expectations conversation. Now, this is a critical conversation because it will define for you what your boss would consider a successful outcome to the problem that is at hand. It is important that you and your supervisor are aligned in terms of what the solution should be before it gets executed. This solution must be looked at as granularly as possible. The more granularly you can examine the solution, the more milestones you will have along the way to report about how you are coming along and making progress. This conversation makes things real and will constitute of the actions you need to perform on an everyday basis in the successful accomplishment of your responsibilities. You may feel that the outcome your boss desires is unrealistic. And if that is the assessment you come to, then the resources you will fight for will be very different versus the outcome expected is one that seems well within the realities as you see it. The third conversation or discussion that you need to have with your boss is the resources conversation. This is now asking for what you need to make the outcome expected of you an actual reality. Resources can be thought of as the amount of time you need to produce the outcome. It can be, thought of as the human resources that you will need to accomplish these tasks. So you may need a team of five people to assist you, and the reality may be that you only get two or three people assisting you. So, having this conversation, you can then redefine the timeline so that it is more realistic while still being a stretch for what is to be achieved. Resources can also be in terms of money that you will require to create the outcome. Create the outcome. So, let's say the outcome is to develop a new software system. To get a vendor to develop this or to hire the resources to develop this new software platform in house, will require money. So, in this conversation, you will have to spell out clearly the monetary resources required to get the job done. The fourth conversation you will need to have with your boss is the style conversation. In this conversation, you will learn about the manner in which your boss expects you to walk this journey. Does he or she want you to report on progress in a daily discipline, or every other day, or weekly, or all of the above? Does he or she prefer you call and discuss this with them on the phone every evening, or do they expect a written format? It is important that you be in the office every day, or is it okay for you to remain in the field tackling the problem and creating the solutions to these issues? The idea here is that the style conversation ensures that the manner in which you work works for your boss, that you and your boss get along so that he or she can guide you in how the journey is to be traveled as you go about attempting to achieve this solution. The last conversation that you need to have with your boss is with regard to your personal development. Now, this conversation should be had ideally when you have made sufficient solid progress towards the goal and the finish line is starting to come into view. For it is this important conversation that will set you up for your next challenge. And it is in this conversation that the value that needs to flow back to you is the seed that is planted. It is identified and quantified, especially if it is a role that you're desiring to be able to achieve. So your next project or your next responsibility should be one that is truly challenging for you. It should help you grow to become a better employee, a better manager, a better leader. And again, your assessment and your boss's assessment must come to a similar end in terms of what your next role is and how you will be rewarded for that role that you have been playing. So that is the reason why this conversation should be taken up when you and your boss realize that your current project is on the right track and quantifiable and significant progress has been made towards it. In fact, that is the finishing line that is already starting to come into view. And this is why this is the fifth conversation conducted in this order that really plants the seed for you to be able to ask your boss for a raise or a salary hike or a promotion at the right time. See, you are responsible for negotiating your own success, and that means tackling these five very important conversations of situational diagnosis, expectations, resources, style, and personal development. Don't leave this to your boss or to your organization. I hope you got value from this podcast. And if you know someone who is looking to get a salary hike or a raise, I hope you will share this with them so that this can benefit them as well. Thank you so much for listening. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.